Many people ask me questions about Stoic philosophy and practice. I've created this series to provide short answers to the most common, recurring, or confusing questions about Stoicism. Is Stoicism a religion? This is an entirely understandable question and one that I think is great to grapple with in the present time, given that we don't have some sort of entirely agreed upon definition of religion. And the answer is that for some people in the present, yes, Stoicism is for them a religion, but in general, no, Stoicism is not a religion. It's always helpful when considering anything having to do with Stoicism to look at what the classic representatives of that school actually had to say. Now, you can certainly assert that the Stoics themselves were religious and had some religious conceptions, and much of that was taking the traditional Greek Roman religion, the spread throughout the Mediterranean, and reinterpreting it in such a way that it would make sense in relation to the philosophy. They were not the only people to be doing that, by the way. The Platonic school, the Aristotelian school, the Epicurean school, all of these philosophical schools are reinterpreting a already there religious framework. So the Stoics do have religious conceptions, but they didn't have something like their own religion. And as a matter of fact, they would be willing to use the already existing institutions and rituals of the religion. So, for example, thinking about temples, thinking about festivals, all of that panoply of religious piety was stuff that could be adopted for Stoicism. What we can say about the Stoics' reinterpretation of traditional religion is that it's very rationalistic, very much oriented towards practice. The Stoics did believe that there is a logos with a capital L, a rationality pervading the universe. They were perfectly happy calling this Zeus or God. But they dissociated it from the traditional conception of Zeus as this lightning, bolt-throwing guy who sleeps around with a whole bunch of different women, cheating on his wife, siring demigods all over the place, getting wrapped up in arguments between the gods. That, the Stoics said, that's all just fables. When it came to other matters of religious practice, for example, oracles, we see that the Stoics did think that there was something to the practice of divination, but that we really shouldn't make any recourse to it unless, it's something that really requires divine input. In most cases, we can answer the question ourselves, and so we shouldn't really concern ourselves with divination or what the priests might be saying. So you can say that Stoicism, again, was religious, and it did, in fact, interface with the traditional religion, but it was not a religion in ancient times. How then might Stoicism be viewed as a religion by some modern Stoics? Well, we don't have an agreed upon definition of religion, whether we're talking about in philosophy of religion, religious studies, or even more generally. Anybody who tries to sell you the notion that there's one single definition of religion is peddling snake oil to you. So we have a very broad conception of religion, and people can, select certain traits and call things religions, which may not be acceptable as such to other people. And some people have, in fact, in the present, taken Stoicism and used it as something like a faith. Very often they're coming out of other religious contexts and seeking for something. Some people prefer the term spirituality rather than religion, and that's a bit broader. That can also apply to Stoicism. And then there's many, many people in the present who say, listen, Stoicism is a philosophy or it's a life approach. It has nothing to do with religion in the traditional sense, so let's disentangle it. And you might ask, well, which of these views are the right view? they're all perfectly legitimate within the present. Stoicism, you might say, has a certain compatibility to be taken to be a religion. This is when you see people engaging in particular rituals and getting together in communities, whether face-to-face or virtual, and getting tattoos of the Stoic flame on parts of their body. Other people are perfectly content to say, listen, it's got nothing to do with religion. So if you had to answer the question, is Stoicism a religion? You can say, yes, it is for some people, but there's no church. There's no hierarchy. There's no authoritative body. Some people have put together what they call, I think rather facetiously, a Stoic Bible, but there's really no such thing. And the entire attitude, I would say, involved in much of modern Stoicism is not quite the same as what we see in religious communities. So the answer is really Stoicism is not a religion, but people can make it into one if they wish to. If you found this answer helpful for you, then please share it with others who might benefit from it. This work is entirely supported by crowdfunding on my Patreon site. So if you find it valuable, consider becoming a supporter at patreon.com/Sadler.